Have you ever seen the moon goddess make a choice, and the chosen one spit on it in front of the entire kingdom? That's exactly what happened the night the sacred ceremony turned into a blood-chilling scandal. And the moment that one rejection changed everything. If you think this is just another fated mate story, you're dead wrong. Stay with me, because what begins with shame ends in fire, betrayal, and a war the wolves never saw coming. It was the night of the choosing. Silver torches lined the courtyard, shadows flickering on faces filled with awe. Wolves of every rank bowed their heads as the moonlight descended, illuminating the arena where fates would be revealed. Lyra's heart pounded. She was never the center of attention, a quiet healer's daughter often overlooked, whispered about as too weak for alpha blood. But when the divine glow fell upon her, silence struck the crowd like a blade. The moon goddess had spoken. Lyra's mate was Prince Kaelen. Gasps rippled through the audience, the heir to the throne, the alpha prince every she-wolf dreamed of, handsome, powerful, untouchable. Lyra trembled, stunned, her wolf inside howling with recognition. This was supposed to be the moment her life began. But Kaelen's eyes were cold steel. He stepped forward, looked her up and down, and sneered. Her? His voice echoed across the courtyard. The goddess mocks me. A hush fell. Lyra froze, her lips parting in disbelief. Kaelen raised his hand for silence. I reject you, Lyra of no name. You are unworthy of me. You will never bear my mark, nor my crown. The words struck harder than claws. The crowd erupted in murmurs, some pitying, others laughing cruelly. Lyra's knees buckled, shame clawing at her chest. But then, something strange stirred inside her. Her wolf roared, a sound she had never felt before. A deep growl that silenced even the mocking voices. Heat rushed under her skin, her veins burning like fire, and that's when she saw him. Beyond the crowd, in the shadows by the gates, a figure stood. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver eyes glowing unnaturally bright. His gaze locked on her, piercing through her humiliation, through her pain, as though he had been waiting for this very moment. As Lyra collapsed under the weight of rejection, the stranger whispered words that no one else heard. She's mine. The world tilted. The ceremony descended into chaos, and Lyra's destiny, once so small, erupted into a storm that would set kingdoms ablaze. Gasps still echoed through the courtyard when Lyra hit the marble floor, her vision swimming with humiliation, her wolf clawing violently inside her chest. The glow of the moonlight dimmed as if even the goddess had withdrawn in silence. Guards rushed forward, but not to help her, to shield the prince from the shame he himself had caused. Kaelen's voice rang out, sharp and merciless. This mockery ends tonight. Lyra is no mate of mine. From this day forth she is banished, exiled beyond the borders. She will not breathe the same air as my kingdom. The decree struck harder than his rejection. Banished? For what crime? Being chosen? Murmurs swelled like a storm, some crying injustice, others agreeing that a weakling like Lyra was dangerous if marked by fate. Her throat tightened, but she forced her shaking body to rise. She would not let them see her beg. Dragged past the gates, stripped of dignity, Lyra crossed into the cold forest where exiles vanished and never returned. Each step cut deeper, her wolf raging, her chest aflame. And yet, she felt eyes on her, watching, following, the same silver gaze from the ceremony. Night fell. The trees whispered, and then they came. Figures cloaked in black leapt from the shadows. Assassins. Their blades gleamed in the moonlight as they surrounded her. Forgive us, little flame, one hissed, but the prince commanded your heart as proof of your exile. Fear should have broken her, but instead fire ignited. A roar erupted from her wolf, and flames burst from her hands, wild and uncontrolled. The assassins staggered back, their skins scorched, their blades melting in their grip. Lyra herself screamed, the heat too much for her human form. Yet the power refused to die. When the flames died down, bodies lay broken, the forest smoldering. She fell to her knees, chest heaving, horrified at what she had done. That was when the stranger stepped from the shadows. He was taller up close, his silver eyes glowing with something both dangerous and reverent. His presence commanded the forest itself to still. "You are not weak," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of storms. "You are the fire they fear." Lyra staggered back. "Who are you?" He stepped forward, every inch of him radiating alpha authority. "Darius, Alpha Lord of the Shadow Pack." The name froze her blood. The enemy, the rival kingdom, the wolf Kaelen hated above all others. Darius's gaze never wavered. Slowly, deliberately, he bent the knee before her, his voice dropping to a vow that shattered everything she thought she knew. "The moon goddess made no mistake, Lyra. You were never meant for him. You are destined for me." The forest was silent. Only the crackle of smoldering ash remained as Darius knelt before Lyra, his silver eyes never leaving hers. "You are destined for me," he said again, the vow echoing like a thunderclap in her mind. Lyra staggered backward, rage and disbelief clawing at her chest. "Destined? Do you think I'm some prize to be passed from one alpha to another? First rejected, now claimed like I'm a weapon you can wield? No." Her voice shook, but the fire in her veins refused to dim. "I will never belong to you." Darius rose to his full height, towering over her, power rolling off him in waves. "You misunderstand, Lyra. I don't claim you. I recognize what you are, what Kaelen rejected out of fear." His gaze hardened. "And make no mistake, he will come for you. The prince won't allow the one he cast aside to rise beyond his reach. If you stay alone, you will not survive." Her fists clenched, torn between fury and a gnawing truth. He wasn't wrong. Kaelin's hatred ran deep. His pride would never forgive being defied by fate. But could she trust the Alpha Lord of their sworn enemies? Still burning with defiance, Lyra spat. "If you're trying to manipulate me into joining your pack, you'll be disappointed. I'd rather walk into fire than bend to another Alpha's will." A flicker of amusement crossed his lips. "Good," he said simply. "I don't need a submissive mate. I need fire that doesn't burn out." He turned his back to her, motioning to follow. "Come, see with your own eyes. Then decide." Against every instinct, curiosity tugged at her. Reluctantly, she followed. They crossed into Shadowpack territory under the shroud of night, the land darker, the air heavier, as though the earth itself bent under Darius's rule. Wolves gathered silently as he led her into a vast cavern lit by torches. Strange markings glowed on the stone, pulsing like veins of fire. The wolves formed a circle, their eyes gleaming with reverence. At Darius's command, they bowed their heads. But then, something impossible happened. As Lyra stepped into the circle, every wolf dropped lower, their bodies trembling, their throats vibrating with instinctive submission. Not to Darius, to her. Panic surged. "Why are they—" Darius's expression was unreadable. "Because they feel what I feel, power older than crowns, something even I cannot command." The ground shook, and from the shadows, an ancient seer emerged, her eyes milk white, her body draped in wolf pelts. She raised her staff, pointing it at Lyra, her voice breaking into a chilling prophecy that silenced the cavern. "She carries the forgotten flame," the seer declared, her words echoing like thunder through stone. "And the kingdom will burn for her." "She carries the forgotten flame," the seer's voice thundered, her eyes glowing like molten glass. "And the kingdom will burn for her." The words clung to the cavern air like smoke. Lyra's heart raced as every wolf bent lower, their heads bowed as though the prophecy itself commanded their submission. She shook her head violently, backing away. "No, I didn't ask for this. I'm not your savior, and I will not be your weapon." But the fire in her chest betrayed her words, burning hotter with every breath as though agreeing with the seer's declaration. Darius's gaze lingered on her, sharp and unreadable. "You can deny it, Lyra. But power this old does not vanish, it only grows. And if you cannot master it, it will master you." His warning proved true in the days that followed. Under Darius's relentless training, Lyra fought to control her destructive fire. Each strike of her fist sent sparks through the air. Each roar of her wolf threatened to ignite the very ground she stood on. Sometimes she succeeded, holding the flame steady in her palms. Other times it lashed out wildly, searing stone and leaving scars on her skin. Her frustration mounted. "It doesn't listen to me," she hissed, her hands trembling. "Because you're still afraid," Darius replied coldly. "Stop fearing your fire, or it will consume everything you love." But even as Lyra wrestled with her own strength, danger crept closer. Unseen by the Shadow Pack, Kaelen had dispatched spies across the border, wolves skilled in silence and shadow. Their orders were clear: find her, end her, leave no trace. One night, Lyra woke to the sound of a struggle in the woods. A Shadow Pack guard dragged a bloodied figure into camp, a spy caught sneaking too close to the Alpha's den. His clothes bore the royal crest. His eyes gleamed with cruel defiance even in chains. "Who sent you?" Darius demanded. The spy spat blood and laughed bitterly. "The prince wants what's his, or what should have never been born." His gaze flicked to Lyra, burning with contempt. "The kingdom knows her now. The coward Kaelen has branded her traitor of the crown." The word sliced through her chest like a blade. A traitor? For being rejected? For surviving? The humiliation of the ceremony now painted her as an enemy to the very land she was born in. Darius's wolves snarled, their hackles raised. Lyra stepped forward, her flames sparking unconsciously at her fingertips. She wanted answers. She wanted truth. But before she could speak, the spy's body convulsed violently. His veins blackened, smoke rising from his skin. Darius cursed under his breath. Witchcraft! The spy's mouth twisted into a grotesque grin as he choked on his last breath. His final words, rasped through burning lips, froze Lyra's blood. Kaelen's command: bring her heart. The body fell limp, lifeless, consumed from the inside. The spy's charred corpse still smoked where it lay, the stench of burnt flesh choking the night air. Lyra's pulse hammered in her ears. Bring her heart. The words would not leave her. She wanted to scream, to demand why Kaelen hated her so much that he would rather see her dead than free. Instead, she turned away, her hands trembling with fire she could not extinguish. Darius dismissed the guards, his voice sharp as steel. But when he looked at her, his tone softened, though his gaze burned no less fiercely. "This is why you cannot wander unguarded. Every step you take, every breath you draw, Kaelen will try to steal it. You are mine to protect." Lyra flinched at the word. Mine. It sounded too much like a chain, even though his eyes carried a heat that felt nothing like Kaelen's scorn. Still, her heart warred with itself. Was this Alpha Lord shielding her, or slowly binding her under his dominance? Sleep did not bring relief. That night she dreamed of Kaelen. His voice slithered into her mind like smoke. She saw his face pale and hollow, his lips curling into a cruel smile. "You think he will save you?" Kaelen whispered in the dream. "Darius will use you as I cast you aside, but I—" His hand reached for her cheek, cold and burning at once. "I will always own you, Lyra. Our bond cannot be erased." She woke gasping, drenched in sweat, the phantom of his touch still on her skin. The next day she threw herself into training with Darius, desperate to burn away Kaelen's lingering presence. But the fire inside her had grown wild, volatile. Each strike against the training post sent waves of heat across the field. Wolves stopped to stare, whispering, wary of the power that singed the earth beneath her feet. "Focus!" Darius barked, circling her. "You are not a storm. You are a blade. Control it." Lyra snarled, anger boiling over. "Stop commanding me like I'm yours to shape." Her flames exploded outward, a torrent of fire that roared like a beast. Darius lunged forward, shoving her aside to shield the others. The inferno engulfed him, swallowing his figure in a wave of burning light. "No!" Lyra screamed, terror piercing through her rage. She tried to pull the fire back, but it resisted, hungering, lashing out like it had a will of its own. At last, the flames receded, and Darius staggered from the blaze, smoke rising from his scorched armor, his eyes still locked on her. Alive, but barely. Lyra fell to her knees, horror flooding her chest. I almost killed you. But before he could answer, the air above her shimmered. The fire still clinging to her body surged upward, twisting into a shape that froze the entire training ground. A crown of living flame blazed above her head, majestic and terrifying before flickering out into nothing. The fiery crown hung above Lyra's head for a heartbeat too long, its glow casting shadows of awe and fear across the training ground. Then, just as suddenly, it flickered out, leaving behind a silence so heavy it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Lyra collapsed to her knees, trembling. What was that? Darius, still smoldering from her flames, stared at her as though he'd seen a ghost. Not a weapon, not a curse, a sign. His voice was rough, yet reverent. The fire is crowning you, Lyra. It doesn't bow to kings. It creates them. But before she could respond, whispers began to ripple through the shadow pack. Whispers that soon turned into warnings carried across the borders. Kaelen had chosen another mate. Her name was Selene. Beautiful, graceful, and cold as ice. Her arrival had shocked the kingdom, not because she was powerful, but because she was unknown. She had come from nowhere, her bloodline unrecorded, her past whispered about in fragments. Some swore they'd seen her walk the forest long before Kaelen ever met her, untouched by age. Others whispered darker things, that Selene was bound to forbidden magic, the kind that bent wolves to her will. And yet Kaelen paraded her as his bride-to-be, his salvation. For Lyra, the blow struck deeper than rejection. She was no longer just forgotten. She was being erased. But the whispers carried more. Kaelen's reign as Alpha Prince would only be fully legitimized when he produced an heir. Until then, the stain of the goddess's rejected mate bond haunted him, which meant one thing: as long as Lyra lived, she was a threat to his crown. Sitting by the fire that night, Lyra stared into the flames, their heat reflecting the war inside her. She wanted to rage, to cry, to burn the memory of Kaelen away. But instead, she heard a frail voice behind her. It was Elder Kael, one of Darius's oldest advisors, his hair silver as frost, his eyes weary but piercing. He crouched beside her, his words heavy with truth. Child, you think this is about who claims you, but destiny is not about being chosen. His gaze fixed on her with unnerving clarity. It is about who you choose. You are not bound to Kaelen's rejection, nor to Darius' protection. The fire burns for no master. Her chest tightened. Then why do I feel pulled in every direction? Because the kingdom itself waits for your decision, and until you make it, the war will not end. Before she could answer, a distant horn shattered the night. Wolves rushed to the borderlands, the air vibrating with the approach of hundreds, no, thousands, of paws. From the cliff's edge, Lyra saw them. Kaelen's army, banners high, steel flashing under the moonlight. At their head sat the prince himself, armored in silver, Selene by his side. His voice carried across the fields, cold and merciless. Shadow Pack, hand over the traitor Lyra, or burn with her. The night air crackled with hostility. From the ridge, Kaelen's army stretched like an ocean of steel and fur, their snarls shaking the earth. Shadow Pack warriors lined the opposite side, weapons raised, eyes fixed on the silver-armored prince who dared to breach their border. Shadow Pack, Kaelen's voice thundered across the field. You harbor what is mine. Hand Lyra over, or I will tear your lands apart stone by stone. Beside him, Selene sat astride a pale wolf, her cold smile gleaming in the moonlight. Her gaze lingered on Lyra like a knife tracing the skin. Darius stepped forward, his presence dark and unyielding. She was yours once, and you cast her aside. You have no claim here, Prince. His wolves howled behind him, the sound rolling like thunder through the valley. Kaelen's jaw tightened. You stole her. I stole nothing, Darius snapped. You rejected the moon goddess's will. That is your shame, not mine. The air grew thick with snarls and growls, war moments away from igniting. And in the middle of it all, Lyra felt her fire stir. She couldn't let this end in blood. Not over her. Not again. Her steps carried her forward, every eye on the battlefield snapping toward her. Her voice, though trembling, rang out. "Stop this. I am not a prize to be fought over. I will face him myself." Gasps rippled through both packs. Even Darius's expression darkened, but he did not stop her. Lyra stepped into the space between armies, the moonlight bathing her in silver. She looked at Kaelen, her chest tight with old wounds. For a moment, she expected more venom, more rejection. But what she saw in his eyes shook her to the core. Not scorn, not rage, desperation. "Lyra!" Kaelen's voice broke, his face stripped of its usual arrogance. "I was wrong." The world seemed to still. "I rejected you because I was afraid," he confessed, his voice carrying across the field. "Afraid of your fire, afraid of your strength. But every day since, I have felt the bond tearing at me, and I cannot escape it. Come back to me. Be my mate. Together we can rule. Forgive me." The silence that followed was deafening. Wolves on both sides shifted uneasily. Even Darius's wolves looked at Lyra, waiting. Her heart pounded. Part of her wanted to scream at him, to remind him of the humiliation, the exile, the assassins he'd sent. Another part, the bond still tethered deep in her soul, ached at the sincerity in his eyes. But before she could find words, movement flashed beside Kaelen. Celine. Her eyes gleamed like obsidian, her smile sharp as glass. And then, without hesitation, she drove a dagger into Kaelen's side. The prince's breath caught in his throat. Blood bloomed across his silver armor. Both armies erupted in cries of shock and fury. Lyra's scream tore through the night as Kaelen collapsed, his lifeblood spilling onto the soil between them. The battlefield froze in horror as Kaelen crumpled, Celine's dagger buried deep in his side. His soldiers roared in outrage, charging forward, but Selene leapt back with unnatural speed, her eyes glowing with a sickly lunar light. "Hold!" Darius barked, his voice cracking like thunder. His wolves obeyed instantly, their formation holding strong. But Kaelen's warriors stumbled, torn between fury and panic, as their prince writhed on the ground. Lyra's instincts propelled her forward. She dropped to her knees beside Kaelen, her hands pressing against the wound. Heat surged beneath her skin, fire begging to be unleashed, but she fought to steady her touch. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Don't you dare die now." Kaelen's eyes fluttered open, pain etched across his face. "It burns. It burns from within," he rasped. His lips turned a frightening shade of black. Darius knelt on the other side, his expression grim. He yanked the dagger free and sniffed the blade, his jaw tightening. "Not steel," he muttered. "Witchcraft." Lyra's eyes widened. "Witchcraft?" Darius's gaze locked onto Selene, who stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching them with eerie calm. "She's no ordinary mate," he said, voice laced with venom. "She is a witch of the eclipse, sworn to bring ruin to Wolfkind, and now she has revealed her hand." Selene's lips curled into a smile. "Finally someone recognizes me." She lifted her bloody fingers to the sky, and the moon itself seemed to dim. A chill swept across the field as wolves on both sides shuddered under the weight of her presence. Kaelen groaned, gripping Lyra's wrist weakly. "Don't let her win." His body convulsed, the poison eating through him like wildfire. Lyra's breath hitched as heat exploded through her chest. Suddenly her vision blurred, reality fracturing. She was no longer kneeling in blood-soaked grass, but standing in a burning temple centuries old. Her reflection appeared in shattered glass, not her face, but countless versions of herself, warrior, queen, priestess, exile. Flames crowned each incarnation. "You have carried the flame across lifetimes," a voice echoed in her skull. "You are the Flamebearer, and the world will burn or be saved by your choice." She gasped, snapping back into the present, trembling. Darius was staring at her, eyes wide with recognition. "You saw it," Didn't you? He whispered. The truth of what you are. Before Lyra could respond, a shrill scream cut through the chaos. Her blood froze. Dragged forward by shadows of unnatural magic bound in chains that hissed with fire was a boy with familiar amber eyes. Her brother, her only surviving kin. Arik! Lyra's voice broke, every part of her burning with terror. Celine's smile widened as she shoved him to his knees, pressing a hand of black flame over his head. Your blood for your bond, she hissed. Surrender yourself to me, Flamebearer, or I will burn your brother alive before your eyes. Both armies gasped, horrified. Lyra's heart thundered in her chest, fire rising uncontrollably in her veins. Her brother's wide, terrified gaze locked onto hers, and she realized she had only moments to decide. Lyra's world narrowed to two horrific truths: her brother's trembling form at Celine's mercy, and the black flames licking closer. Every breath she took felt searing, every heartbeat a drum of terror. Her decision crystallized in that moment. Taking a breath colder than grief, she surged forward, not with fire but with stealth. The battlefield behind her dissolved as she slipped through twisted magic into Celine's lair, a hollowed cavern lit by unnatural glow and veiled in silken shadows. Her brother, Arik, was chained to a spire of obsidian, flames swirling around his head like a crown of despair. Selene stood beside him, her silhouette languid and cruel. You come, she purred, her voice echoing off stone. To save him? Lyra's jaw tightened. Let him go. Selene laughed softly, cold as a death knell. You think this started with Kaelen's rejection? The moon goddess paired you with him, to test what you would do when your heart was broken by fate. Lyra's blood froze. Test me? Yes. Selene leaned forward, her voice venomous and smooth. Your true power isn't to be anyone's mate. It's to end the reign of alphas, the bonds, the hierarchy, the worship. You carry the power to remake the world. Lyra's jaw trembled. That's not destiny, it's destruction. Selene tilted her head. Is it, or salvation? But before Lyra could argue, she lunged. With a fierce roar, she punched through the chains binding her brother, the fire in her hands flaring to life. The chains shattered, and Arik tumbled free, scrambling backward. Celine's eyes narrowed. You free him, but you will not walk away untouched. She pressed her hand over Lyra's forearm, the cool metal of a branded sigil burning bright onto her skin. With a gasp, Lyra staggered as the mark glowed with corrupt energy. Twisted runes coiled like snakes across her skin, etching themselves deep. Lyra grabbed Arik. We have to go. But Selene raised a hand. Go, she whispered with wicked sweetness. Just know, your wolf will die from within. Before Lyra could react, the runes glowed fiercely. Black tendrils of energy seeped into her flesh, into her wolf, into her soul. She collapsed. Arik screamed her name. The lair warbled, the ground trembling with the sorcery unleashed. Flames crackled through Lyra's veins, but not with her fire. Something darker, hollow, consuming. Lyra's scream still echoed through the cavern walls as she and Arik stumbled back into Shadowpact territory. Her arm throbbed with the cursed mark, veins blackened as though her own wolf was rotting beneath her skin. Every step felt heavier, every breath shorter, her fire flickering like a dying ember. Darius was waiting. The moment his eyes landed on her, his composure cracked. He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands trembling as he brushed the searing mark. Selene's poison, he whispered. If it spreads, your wolf will be consumed. You will not survive. Lyra tried to steady herself, to breathe past the burning agony. Then, cut it out, she gasped, voice ragged. Darius's jaw clenched. There's only one way to stop it. His gaze locked with hers, molten and unyielding. A blood bond. I will bind my life to yours, share my strength, my fire, my wolf. It will root the curse out. Her heart stuttered. No, she rasped, shaking her head. Every choice I've made has been stolen by destiny. By Kaelen. By the goddess. Even you. She shoved weakly at his chest. I will not be bound again. But the mark pulsed, black fire snaking across her veins. Darius caught her hand, holding it against his chest where his heartbeat thundered. This isn't destiny, Lyra. This is choice. Mine. Before she could respond, a shadow moved in the tree line. Her body tensed as a familiar scent reached her. Bittersweet, haunting. Kaelen. He stepped into the light, pale and worn, his once proud posture marred by weakness. A faint scar glimmered where Celine's blade had pierced him, and his golden eyes burned with something Lyra had never seen before. Desperation. Lyra. His voice cracked. He staggered toward her, ignoring the growl rumbling from Darius's chest. I was wrong. About everything. About you. The throne means nothing without you beside me. Share it with me. Rule with me. Her heart twisted violently. The mate who had shattered her, now begging. The alpha who had fought for her, now offering his very soul. The curse inside her flared, black fire clawing at her ribs. She gasped, falling to her knees. Darius shouted an incantation, his blood-red energy wrapping around her body like chains of flame. At the same time, Kaelen reached forward, his hands cupping her face, his touch flooding her with remnants of their mate bond. Her body convulsed, caught between two powers, Darius's burning bond ritual and Kaelen's desperate touch. The mark seared, splitting her veins with light and shadow, tearing her from within. Her scream ripped through the night as her body arched. Lyra's scream fractured into silence. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on damp earth, breath shallow, body trembling. But she was not alone. Two heartbeats thundered inside her head, two voices, two presences. Lyra. Darius's tone, fierce, protective, a blaze of fire that wrapped around her like armor. Lyra. Kaelen's voice, softer, laced with longing and regret, yet seething with an alpha's command. She clutched her temples as both voices overlapped, flooding her with raw emotion. Rage, love, jealousy, fear, none of them hers, yet all of them inside her. Darius reached for her, his eyes wide. The bond, it's tethered you to both of us, Kaelen snarled, stepping forward. Then she belongs to me, as the goddess intended. Lyra staggered to her feet, chest heaving. Stop it. I don't belong to either of you. But even as she shouted, their emotions twisted her insides. Kaelen's desperation bleeding into her heartbeat, Darius's fury searing her veins like wildfire. They lunged at each other, the air thick with snarls and power. The ground shook beneath their clash, their wolves straining for dominance. Lyra's vision blurred, fire spilling from her hands unbidden. Every strike they threw echoed in her skull, every wound they took seared her own flesh. If they kill each other, they kill me, she realized, horror dawning. I can't. Stay here, she gasped, stumbling back, clutching her cursed arm. With a burst of fire, she flung them apart and bolted into the night, running until the bond pain dulled to a distant ache. For days she ran, guided by whispers she didn't understand, until she reached the ancient peaks of the Moonfang Mountains. At their heart, carved into the stone itself, stood a forgotten temple. Its massive doors loomed, older than any kingdom, etched with symbols of fire and moons. Her chest heaved as she pushed a hand against the stone. The cursed mark on her arm pulsed, and with a groaning tremor, the doors creaked open, on their own. The air inside shimmered with ghostly light. Lyra stepped forward, her fire flickering against the walls. Then she froze. A mural stretched across the temple's heart. Her own face, crowned in fire. But not as savior, as destroyer. In vivid paint and shadow, she stood amidst ash, her flames consuming two wolves who knelt before her. Their shapes were unmistakable, Kaelen and Darius, burning alive under her hand. Lyra staggered back, horror clawing her throat. And then, her reflection in the mural's fiery crown turned and smiled. Lyra's breath came in ragged bursts as the mural's fiery reflection smirked back at her. Her hands trembled, flames flickering at her fingertips. Before she could recoil, a voice, old as the mountain itself, drifted through the chamber. "You have seen it," said a figure cloaked in silver and ash. From the shadows stepped the high priestess of the Moonfang Temple, her eyes like twin orbs of moonlight. The flame of ending always burns brightest when torn between love and ruin. Lyra staggered back. That thing said I'll destroy them both. Is that my fate? The priestess's expression did not soften. You are the flame of ending, child. The goddess rebirthed you through centuries not for peace, but for choice. You may save the Pax or end them in fire. Lyra's cursed mark seared her skin, a cruel reminder of Selena's grip. Then tell me how to break this. The priestess's voice lowered, sharp as a blade. Not by denial. The curse feeds on suppression, on your fear of desire. To master it, you must stop running from what you crave. Embrace it, or be consumed. Her chest tightened. Desire. Darius's fierce devotion. Kaelen's desperate longing. Was she doomed to choose between them or doomed because of them? Before she could speak, the temple shook, echoing with a howl from the distance. The priestess turned grim. Selene stirs the shadow beyond. She gathers feral wolves twisted by her dark magic. They no longer answer to moon nor mate, only to bloodlust. When her army marches, no pack will stand. Lyra's heart pounded. She saw flashes, wolves with hollow eyes, dripping shadows, tearing through villages, her brother screaming, Darius bleeding, Kaelen burning. Then I can't wait, Lyra whispered. If desire is my weapon, I'll use it. The priestess only inclined her head. Be sure it is your choice, not your chains. That night under the hollow moon, Darius found her alone in the temple's courtyard, her skin glowing with firelight. His eyes lingered on her cursed mark, then rose to meet hers, heavy with unspoken hunger. You're slipping away from me, Lyra, he murmured. Let me anchor you, not as Alpha, as yours. Her throat tightened, but the priestess's words echoed. Embrace desire. She reached for him, fire sparking where their hands touched. The kiss that followed was raw, desperate, searing. His lips grounding her fire wrapping him whole. For one dizzying heartbeat, the curse's burning eased. And then, Lyra. The word cut like a blade. She broke the kiss, breathless, turning toward the doorway. Kaelen stood there, his eyes ablaze, betrayal twisting his face into something feral. Lyra. Kaelen's voice cracked the air like thunder. His eyes, burning with hurt and rage, locked onto her lips, still glistening from Darius's kiss. He's poisoned you, Kaelen spat, stepping forward, his fists clenched. Manipulated you into this. You were mine, fated by the goddess herself, and he's stolen you. Darius bristled, pulling Lyra slightly behind him. She's not a prize to be stolen, Kaelen. She chose. But Lyra's heart thundered with chaos. Chose? Did she? The kiss had been instinct, fire breaking chains, but now Kaelen's pain clawed at her chest through their cursed bond. Two bonds, two hearts at war inside her. Stop, she cried, flames bursting at her fingertips. Both of you, stop before I burn this place to ash. Before either Alpha could respond, a smaller voice trembled from the shadows. Maybe that's what you need to do. Lyra turned, her breath catching. Her younger brother Aaron stepped into the torchlight, his face pale, his eyes heavy with guilt. Aaron, Lyra whispered, what are you? I've been helping Selene. The words fell like stones into silence. Darius's growl rumbled low, Kaelen's lips twisted in disgust, but Aaron pressed on, tears spilling. She told me you weren't meant for either of them. That she could free you, Lyra. Free you from being chained to mates who will tear you apart. Lyra's knees weakened. Her own brother, her last family, had betrayed her. Aaron, how could you? I didn't want to, he cried. But she said you'd die if you stayed bound to them. She said the Flamebearer was never meant to serve Alphas. She showed me visions of you in chains, of your fire breaking under their grip. His voice cracked. I only wanted to save you. Kaelen snarled. He's lying for her. Just like Selene, trying to twist your destiny. No, Darius countered, his jaw tight. He's telling the truth. Selene wants to pit us against each other, and it's working. Lyra clutched her head, the cursed mark flaring so hot she screamed. Their emotions, Kaelen's fury, Darius's protectiveness, Aaron's guilt, slammed into her like storms colliding inside her veins. Fire erupted along the temple walls, the ancient stones groaning as her control slipped. "I can't," she gasped. "I can't be torn like this anymore." The high priestess rushed forward, chanting, but Lyra's flames consumed her voice. Smoke curled to the ceiling, embers falling like stars. Lyra's scream ripped through the night as she thrust her fire outward. The temple shook violently, its sacred murals igniting in a roar of crimson flame. "I choose neither," she cried, her voice breaking with fury and despair. "I will not be a pawn. I will not be theirs. If destiny wants chains, then let them burn." With a final burst, the mountain temple collapsed into a storm of fire and ash, the night sky glowing like a second sun. And in the inferno's heart, Lyra stood silhouetted, flames crowning her head, her scream echoing into the abyss. The mountain temple lay in smoldering ruins, flames clawing at the night sky. Ash drifted like black snow, coating Kaelen and Darius as they stared at Lyra's blazing silhouette. Neither alpha dared move closer. The fire pulsed with her heartbeat, uncontainable, unmerciful. And far beyond the wreckage, Selene smiled. In a valley bathed in shadow, she donned a crown of twisted obsidian and moonlight. Her voice, laced with dark enchantment, echoed across the packs like a spell. "The moon goddess has abandoned you. The Flamebearer has turned destroyer. But I am your salvation. Bow to your queen and live." Whispers spread like wildfire. Wolves, Kaelen's fiercest warriors, Darius's sworn protectors, began slipping away under the cover of night. Fear clung to them, heavy as chains. If Lyra could burn down the sacred temple of the goddess herself, what hope did they have of surviving her flames? Better to kneel to the witch queen than perish in fire. Lyra felt it. Each betrayal pulsed through her cursed mark like thorns digging deeper. She withdrew into the wilderness, away from Kaelen, away from Darius, away even from her brother. The crackle of fire haunted her ears, the smell of ash clung to her skin. But worse were the voices. They came in whispers, sometimes in screams, echoes of Flamebearers past. Women who had borne her soul before, across centuries, each one burned by destiny. "You are not meant to heal. You are not meant to love. You are meant to end." Lyra pressed her palms to her ears, falling to her knees in the dark forest. "No," she whispered, trembling. "I won't be your weapon. I won't." But their laughter rippled through her mind like fire spreading through dry wood. And then the forest went silent. A new voice filled her head, smooth, silken, and terrifyingly familiar. Lyra turned and saw her, Selene standing before her, though her body dissolved into smoke and flame. A dream. No, something deeper. A tether. "Poor Flamebearer," Selene purred, circling her like a wolf stalking prey. "Your mates fear you. Your people flee you. Even your own blood betrayed you. You are not their savior. You are their doom." Lyra staggered back, but the smoke closed around her like chains. Selene's eyes gleamed with cruel delight. "But I," she whispered, lifting a hand of fire. "See what you truly are. Not a curse, not a pawn, a queen." Before Lyra, a throne of flame and bone rose from the dreamscape, its light searing yet magnetic. Selene's smile widened as she gestured toward it. "Come, Lyra, take your throne, rule with me, let the world burn." The voices of the Flamebearers fell silent, waiting. Lyra's hand trembled as she reached toward the fire. Lyra's hand hovered inches from the throne of fire, the heat blistering her skin. Selene's smile sharpened, her voice curling around her like smoke. "Take it, Flamebearer. Be more than their cursed weapon. Be their queen." But before Lyra's fingers touched the blaze, a roar split the dreamscape. Shadows tore apart, fire cracked, and she was yanked violently back into her own body. She woke gasping in the forest, drenched in sweat, the cursed mark on her skin glowing like molten coal. Elsewhere, Kaelen and Darius faced one another across a war table. The ruins of the temple still smoldered, their warriors weary and divided. You drove her to this, Kaelen snarled, slamming his fist on the table. Your obsession with binding her has only pushed her closer to Selene. And you, Darius snapped back, eyes flashing, still cling to the illusion that she belongs to you. If either of us claims her now, we hand Selene the victory. Their voices shook the chamber, warriors shifting uneasily. Both alphas knew the truth. Neither could win this war alone. At last, through gritted teeth, Darius said, "We fight her together." Kaelin's jaw clenched. A fragile alliance, then. But know this, I don't trust you. Nor I you, Darius replied coldly. But Selene is the greater enemy. Unseen, Lyra listened from the shadows. Her heart burned with a deeper fear than their hatred. Selene's plan. The dream had shown her fragments, runes carved into black stone, wolves howling in ritual circles, Selene's laughter as chains cracked open ancient earth. The eclipse stones. Lyra's visions swirled, unraveling into clarity. Selene wasn't simply building an army. She sought to awaken the first alpha, a godlike wolf king whose reign had been so brutal the moon goddess herself entombed him beneath the earth. If he rose again, all packs, alpha, mate, and flamebearer alike, would fall. Her breath shook. To stop Selene, she couldn't run anymore. She would have to lead them, both alphas who despised one another, bound now by necessity and her cursed presence. But as the decision formed on her lips, the curse mark seared, and a voice, ancient, commanding, terrifying, echoed inside her skull. At last, my flamebearer returns. The ground trembled beneath her feet, a growl older than time itself rumbling through her bones. Come to me, Lyra, you are mine, my mate. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. The voice rattled inside Lyra's chest, ancient and possessive. You are mine, Flamebearer, my mate. Her knees buckled, and the cursed mark blazed like fire etched into her veins. Kaelen and Darius rushed to her side, but their touches only worsened it. A violent surge of energy burst outward, knocking both alphas back. Lyra gasped, clutching the earth. Images seared through her mind. Wolves kneeling before a towering figure cloaked in moonlight, his fangs dripping crimson, his eyes pits of silver fire. She saw herself standing at his side, crowned in ash. Then the vision twisted. Blood pooled at her feet, and the same towering figure whispered in her ear, I am your beginning. You are my rebirth. Lyra woke with a scream, realizing the horrifying truth. The first alpha wasn't just calling her. He was bound to her by blood. He was her ancestor. Her power, her curse, was his legacy. Kaelen gripped her shoulders, his voice raw. Then we end this now. We find Selene and kill her before she awakens him, before he claims you. Darius pulled her away, eyes sharp with fury. No, killing Selene changes nothing if the eclipse stones remain. We destroy the source of her ritual first, or she'll just find another way. The argument tore through them, and Lyra's head throbbed as if their words were knives in her skull. Their bond, fragile, unstable, and now poisoned by the first alpha's call, turned their emotions into hallucinations. Kaelin's rage blazed inside her veins, making her hands drip with phantom blood. Darius's icy resolve filled her lungs until she could barely breathe. Lyra stumbled back, clutching her chest. Flames and shadows danced around her, flickering in and out of existence. Stop, both of you. You're tearing me apart. But the bond refused to quiet. All three collapsed under waves of psychic fire, dragged into a vision of Selene standing before the eclipse stones. She raised her arms, her eyes glowing black. Feral shadow wolves circled her as runes carved themselves into the air. And then, cracks. The ground split, stone groaning as if the earth itself recoiled. Lyra snapped back into her body, panting, the echoes of the ritual shaking the night. She turned toward the distant mountains, where a crimson glow pulsed like a heartbeat. The eclipse stones were breaking. The ground beneath them rumbled violently. A howl unlike any other ripped through the sky, so deep it rattled bone and soul alike. The first alpha was rising. The earth split open, spewing light like molten fire. From the fissure, a colossal shadow rose, its shape both wolf and man draped in the aura of eternity. His eyes, molten silver, pierced straight through Lyra, and every flame in her blood roared in recognition. The first alpha had awakened. "Mine," he growled, his voice ancient thunder that shook the ground. His hand, clawed and massive, reached for Lyra's face as if she were a long-lost possession. "Flame of my blood, flame of my line, my mate!" Kaelen lunged forward, his blade catching the glow of moonlight. "Over my dead body!" Darius moved just as swiftly, shifting into his wolf form mid-stride, snarling with fury. Together, they struck at the towering figure. But the first alpha swatted them aside as though they were pups. Their bodies hit the ground with bone-jarring force, Kaelen coughing blood, Darius staggering back to his feet, only to be slammed down again by an invisible force of will. Lyra screamed, her flames flickering wildly. "Stop! They're not your enemies!" The first alpha tilted his head, his expression both regal and cruel. "They are distractions, pretenders, wolves who think themselves alphas while the true line lies in me, and in you." Before Lyra could respond, Celine's laughter cut through the chaos. She emerged from the shadows, her crown of thorns gleaming black, her hands glowing with runes of binding. "Great One," she purred, bowing low before him, "rise with me, take the throne of blood. Together we will bring wolfkind to its knees." To Lyra's horror, chains of dark magic slithered from her hands, winding around the first alpha. Instead of resisting, he allowed it, his lips curling into a smile. "My queen," he declared, lowering his massive frame to her. "No!" Lyra's flames burst free, searing the ground. She hurled fire at the chains, shattering some, but the clash between her bloodline and Celine's witchcraft only fed the inferno inside her. Her cursed mark flared, scorching her skin from the inside out. Kaelen staggered to his feet, shouting hoarsely, "Fight it, Lyra, you're not his!" Darius's voice joined, fierce despite his wounds. "You choose your own path, not blood, not fate." But Lyra's body betrayed her. The flames writhed uncontrollably, tearing at the air. She dropped to her knees, trembling, torn between the ancestral bond of the first alpha and the fragile bonds she had forged with Kaelen and Darius. The first alpha stepped closer, towering, terrible, his presence consuming everything. He cupped her chin in his clawed hand, tilting her face toward his. "You were born for me. No alpha, no witch, no fate will steal you away." And before she could move, his lips pressed against hers. A scream tore from Lyra's throat as her entire body ignited, her flames surging out of control, turning the night into a raging inferno that devoured stone, sky, and sanity. The kiss seared through Lyra like molten lightning, ripping open every vein of flame inside her. The world blurred into fire, temple walls melting, stone ground splitting, trees outside catching alight with a single breath of her fury. Her scream became a storm of burning winds that tore through everything, friend and foe alike. Kaelen and Darius were flung back, their bodies crashing against shattered stone pillars. The firestorm consumed the battlefield, a vortex of living flame that sought to devour all. Wolves on both sides howled in terror, scrambling for escape. Even Selene shielded herself with black wards, her smirk faltering at the sight of Lyra burning uncontrollably. "Lyra, stop!" Kaelen roared, forcing himself upright. His silver eyes glowed with alpha command, but the flames only surged higher, as though mocking his authority. He stumbled into the inferno, summoning all his strength to shield a cluster of terrified wolves behind him. His skin blistered, his voice breaking, but he refused to retreat. Darius staggered toward her, his wolf form half ripped apart by fire, yet his golden eyes locked on hers with unyielding devotion. "Bond with me, feel me." His voice thundered in her mind, echoing through the psychic tether they shared. "You're not alone, Lyra. Don't let him own you." Her flames faltered for a heartbeat, flickering under the pressure of his emotions. Love, pain, defiance. Darius pushed harder, his voice ragged with desperation. "If you burn, then burn with me, but not for him." The bond snapped taut like a rope, yanking her back from the abyss. For the first time since the first alpha's kiss, Lyra felt herself again, trembling, bleeding, but human. She stumbled forward, collapsing against Darius, his body scorched yet unyielding as he held her close. The firestorm ebbed, retreating into her trembling frame, leaving the battlefield scarred and smoking. Kaelen sank to one knee, his body scorched from shielding innocence, his breath shallow. Still, his gaze lifted to her, not with hate, but a quiet, pained admiration. "You almost killed us all, but you stopped. For him. For us." His words pierced her, reopening the wound of choice she had sworn never to make. Above them, the first Alpha's laughter rolled like thunder. He stepped forward, his aura choking the very air. "Pathetic. You think love will tame the flame of my line? No. This world will bow to me. Every wolf. Every pack. And she," he pointed at Lyra, his voice ringing with prophecy, "will burn it clean." The earth trembled as he raised his clawed hand, summoning the eclipse stone's dark energy. Shadows poured into the sky, blotting out the moon, as if the world itself bent under his will. Lyra's body shook violently, flames crawling across her skin in chaotic spirals. She screamed, not in fear but in defiance, and something inside her snapped open. With a deafening roar, flames burst from her back, not wild, not chaotic, but majestic. Wings of living fire unfurled, stretching high into the night sky, each beat sending sparks scattering like stars. Every wolf fell silent. Even the first Alpha's eyes narrowed, not with dominance, but recognition. Lyra rose above the battlefield, her wings casting a blinding light. For the first time, she wasn't just a bearer of the flame. She was the flame. The battlefield stood frozen beneath the searing glow of Lyra's wings. Wolves stared, their breaths caught between awe and terror, as her flames blazed brighter than the moon itself. Even the first Alpha faltered, his smirk twitching with the faintest trace of recognition. No longer merely a descendant, Lyra now burned as his equal. But silence never lasts long in war. Kaelen's roar split the night as he lunged at Selene, his claws raking through her wards. "You'll never wear a crown bought in blood," he snarled, their powers colliding in a spray of silver light and black shadows. Darius, still holding Lyra only moments before, was forced into motion when feral shadow wolves swarmed from the trees. His blade gleamed gold as he cut them down, each strike echoing with his vow to shield Lyra at any cost. Above it all, Selene's laugh carried through the chaos. "Fools! Fight your petty wars while a god awakens," she lashed out at Kaelen, binding his limbs with chains of shadow. Yet even restrained, he roared and surged against them, his power burning to the edge of madness. And at the heart of it all, Lyra and the first Alpha clashed. His claws ripped at the earth, tearing stone apart, while her fiery wings swept the sky, unleashing storms of living fire. The world seemed too small to hold their battle, each strike shaking the ground, each roar echoing across the mountains. "Submit, Flamechild," the first Alpha bellowed, his voice a command etched in ancient blood. "You were born to be mine." Lyra's chest heaved, her eyes blazing like twin suns. "I was born to end you." She unleashed a torrent of fire that split the shadows apart, forcing him to stagger. Yet his grin only widened, as if her defiance was the spark he had been waiting for. He surged forward, seizing her throat with a clawed hand, their flames and shadows intertwining in a violent storm. In that moment of crushing pressure, Lyra saw it all. Kaelen tearing at Selene's chains, Darius fighting through waves of shadow wolves, packs screaming as the earth cracked open beneath them. She realized with bone-deep certainty, her destiny was never about choosing one Alpha, nor about submitting to prophecy. It was about unmaking it. Her wings flared wider, their edges burning holes through the sky itself. She turned her fire inward, not against her enemies, but upon herself, searing through every bond, every chain of fate, every tether that tried to pull her into someone else's story. The mate bonds, the bloodline, even the flame itself. The first Alpha's triumphant grin twisted into horror. "No, you wouldn't dare." But Lyra's voice rang clear, steady as steel. "I burn for no one." Her flames folded inward, collapsing into her chest. The battlefield was engulfed in blinding light as the fire consumed her from within. Her scream cut through the night, a sound of both agony and freedom. When the light faded, the wings were gone. Lyra's body crumpled, fragile as ash, into Darius's waiting arms. He fell to his knees, clutching her, his voice breaking as he shook her limp form. "No, no, stay with me. Lyra, don't you dare leave me." Her skin shimmered like smoldering embers, ash flaking away with each breath. The first Alpha stood frozen, the power he had sought unraveling before his eyes. Kaelen and Selene, locked in combat, paused, their gazes snapping to Lyra as the impossible unfolded. Darius's arms trembled as he held what was left of her. Lyra, his mate, his fire, dissolving into nothing more than ash. His tears streaked down his face, cutting lines of grief through the soot. Around them the battlefield stilled. Wolves from every pack, Kaelen, even Selene. All stared in silence, unable to believe the girl who had defied gods and kings had fallen so quietly. Kaelen stumbled forward, chains of shadow snapping away from him as his strength returned. He dropped to his knees beside Darius, his face hollow, his chest heaving with words that would not form. "She can't. This can't be the end." The first Alpha's roar broke the silence, shaking mountains and cracking the sky. "The flame dies with her. All bow to me now." He raised his clawed hand, shadows spiraling outward to crush what little hope remained. Selene, wild-eyed and triumphant, lifted her arms to bind him, screaming, "Together, we will rule." And then, light. The ash in Darius's hands lifted on the wind, glowing ember by ember, swirling into the night sky. A great flame blossomed above them, brighter than moonlight, brighter than dawn. Wolves shielded their eyes as the blaze took shape, not wolf, not mortal, but divine. Lyra returned. Her body was remade of living flame, her hair a river of fire cascading down her back. Wings unfurled like burning constellations, and her eyes glowed molten gold. She no longer bore the scent of wolf or witch. She was something new, something the world had never seen. The first flame goddess. Kaelen bowed his head immediately, slamming his fist to his chest. "I surrender all, my crown, my claim, my life. You are above me." His voice cracked, but it carried the truth of his oath. Darius rose, trembling, yet his gaze held steady. "No crown, no chains. I will not kneel, Lyra. I stand with you, your equal, never your master." His words rang with fierce devotion, a vow beyond duty or bond. Selene shrieked, refusing to accept what she saw. She hurled her power at Lyra, shadows screaming through the air. The first Alpha leapt with her, fangs bared, his intent to seize this new goddess as his own. But Lyra raised her hand, and fire fell like judgment, eternal, consuming, absolute. Selene's scream was devoured as flame swallowed her whole, her witch's crown melting into nothingness. The first Alpha, too ancient and proud to beg, howled as his form was reduced to cinders, his shadow erased forever. When the fire dimmed, only silence remained. Wolves across the battlefield bowed, trembling, not from fear but reverence, for they had witnessed the birth of something greater than fate itself. Lyra's flame softened, and she descended, her voice gentle yet resolute. She looked at Kaelen, then at Darius, a small smile curving her lips. "The story is not about being chosen. It's about who I choose." Both Alphas froze, their futures hanging on her words. But before either could respond, the ashes beneath her feet stirred once more. From them rose a child no older than 5, her small frame cloaked in glowing embers. Silver eyes blazed like the moon, and her voice rang clear in the silence. "Mother." Lyra's breath caught, fire flickering uncertainly in her gaze. The packs gasped. Kaelen and Darius exchanged horrified, desperate glances.